with you, but you've worked this hard to get a donor to this point where he or she is interested in supporting your organization via this way. You want to make sure that you sort of get it across the finish line and everything is drafted appropriately in the estate planning document. Giving societies are important. Ours is called the Arbutus Society. And we've spent a lot of time saying any donor can document a bequest. I think that applies to all of us too, right? I think any charity can implement a bequest program. I mean, it's not that hard. It's just periodic messaging and being open to the idea of someone supporting your organization in this fashion. Okay. Any questions on bequests? Like I said, if you get, oh yes.
Quick question, in terms of putting a person on your insurance designation charity, what's the advantage of keeping that money out of, let's say, probate or in, how does that affect the gift itself in terms of the timing of it or the quickness of it and the size of it?
Yeah, and again, trying to stay a little bit out of the tax weeds, there are definite advantages to, for instance, in the area of retirement plans, which oftentimes is a donor's largest asset at their passing, maybe along with a house or whatever. There are definite tax advantages to being on top of it to the point where you name a beneficiary of that particular plan as opposed to allowing that flow through the estate plan. There are a variety of reasons. Some are tax-based. Like you said, some are just logistical-based. A lot of those assets, if you have an appropriate beneficiary designation in place, like you said, pass outside of the probate process. So there are definite advantages to doing so. Life insurance. Now, I was trying to rank these vehicles in their appropriateness for those of you in this room, or at least that was my thought. And in the same way that it's very easy to have a bequest program, right? I mean, you just say, hey, here we are. We're happy to be named as beneficiary of your estate plan. Same thing with life insurance. You don't have to get into the muckety-muck of the details of life insurance, which I'm going to get into just briefly so you know some terminology. The key is you can just as easily be named as a beneficiary of any life insurance plan. There are a million types. John would know much more about this than I do, but just trust me. Life insurance is complicated. There are variable policies, there are flexible policies, universal term, whole life policies, which I love, and I'm going to explain here in a minute. Key man policies, there are a million different types of policies. But again, for your purposes, it doesn't really matter because you should be able to tell a donor with absolute confidence and authority, yes, we would very much appreciate being named as a beneficiary of a life insurance policy. It gets a little more complicated at the IU Foundation because there are these moments when we agree to take ownership of a life insurance policy. The reason for that is if we are the owner of the policy, we get the premium notice, right? They say, okay, IU Foundation, it's time to pay up this year. We then send a letter to the donor saying, hey, it's time to pay up. But instead of them writing a check to the insurance company, they write a check to us to cover the premium, and then we write a check to the insurance company. Why would someone do that? Well, it in essence makes their annual premium payment deductible. It becomes a tax-deductible gift. So that's something that we agree to do on occasion. We we're very, 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 I mean, very, very careful when we're accepting ownership of policies, and basically we'll only accept whole life policies, basically. And you don't see a lot of those out there, unfortunately, because they're very expensive. But they're policies that don't have any sort of inherent investment assumptions in them, and they're pretty, you can be pretty confident that they're going to work the way that the insurance professional says they're going to work. But you should just forget this part. I mean, don't even worry about that. And just be comfortable with being named as a beneficiary of any type of policy. Charitable remainder trusts. Again, a bad example here, again, attempt at comedy here. And if you put us in your will, I'll bring you cookies every year for the rest of your life. That's a little, technically that's not true. These don't always pass through someone's will, but you get the idea. So a charitable remainder trust is a separate standalone trust in which a trustee, for your purposes, that would be a corporate trustee. For our purposes at the IU Foundation, we'll oftentimes agree to serve as trustee, but which a trustee agrees to pay the donor a variable payment for his or her life or multiple lives. Different than a bequest. I always like to view this as a continuum. You have bequests on this end. The donor doesn't need to part with anything today. You have outright gifts where they, in essence, part with everything today. And then there's this in-between, what we call life income gifts, where a donor has to contribute an asset today, but it's different from an outright gift in that he or she receives payments back for life. Again, this is how we do it at the IU Foundation. Our payout percentage is usually 5 to 7%. And unlike charitable gift annuities, is not dependent on age. We're going to talk about charitable gift annuities here in a minute. Again, we're going to get into some of the details of charitable remainder trusts, but again, for your purposes, I would just view these like you would life insurance plans in that, oh yes, Mr. or Mrs. Donor, we are more than happy to be named as a beneficiary of a charitable remainder trust. Wouldn't worry about the management. You certainly wouldn't want to serve as trustee. But again, this is another type of vehicle out there where there is no risk at all to your organization being willing to be named as a beneficiary of these trusts. And the way the mechanics work, there's in all areas of plan giving, we try to find different names for deaths, mortality. So what we say is when the gift is realized, that's the terminology I like to use. So when the gift is realized, right, the remaining funds in the trust account then come to your organization. I'm just telling you this so you can feel like you got your money's worth today as far as knowledge that you may not have had coming in. Charitable remainder trusts work really, really well when you're talking about property other than cash and stock. We're going to talk briefly about charitable gift annuities, and we really at the IU Foundation require cash or appreciated securities to fund those. We'll pretty much allow next to everything under the sun to fund a charitable remainder trust. And the reason for that is, and again, forgive me for this, but we're getting in the weeds a bit, but there's something called a flip charitable remainder trust. The idea being a donor contributes an asset to the trust, the trustee takes ownership of the asset, the trustee tries to sell the asset, and the trustee is not obligated to make any payments beyond just income generated by the asset to the donor until the property is sold. That's why it's a perfect vehicle to take some oddball assets, because you can set it up in a way where the charity is not on the hook until the property is liquidated. We do these with art, we do them with real estate, we do them with commercial real estate, vacation homes, what else? Automobile collections. We did one with a significant automobile collection.